Welcome to Tech Notice, my friends. In this video, we're going to be looking at what is the best bang for buck graphics card for video editing in DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro. Also, we're going to be looking at what is the upgrade path and what will be the lowest graphics card you should be going for and what is the absolute best graphics card. So if you're building a PC for your video editing purposes, then in this video, we're going to be looking at which graphics card is the best for you. So also, if you want to see the video whether you should go with AMD and Nvidia, I recommend you checking out my other video which I did over there. But in this video, we're going to be looking at some deeper analysis on all the graphics card. What is the performance increase? Where you're going higher and higher and higher? At which point is it not worth it going any higher because it's just waste of money? Also, if you want to pick up any of these cards, I'm going to leave links in the description below where you can find them in there. And then my order of things which, is the best for you to purchase, and also the upgrade path and everything. So definitely check out the links in the description. So let's move on to the benchmarks over here on this computer. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of things going on, and don't worry, I'm going to explain everything and it's all going to make sense. Now, in the top right corner over here, you can see some of the prices of these cards. So I'm going to leave them all in the corner over there so you can constantly look at them. These are MSRP prices. So if you want to pick any of these up, obviously probably the stock problem and everything, it's not going to be like that, but just a reference of what these would be. So let's start on the bottom of the chart over here. And as you can see, the AMD cards are actually quite a bit on the bottom. Now, the Radeon RX 6800 over here is faster than 5700 XT, which is a previous generation. But as you can see, the GeForce RTX 3060 Ti is 1.1% better than the 6800, even though it has half of the video memory, as you can see, 6 versus 8, and it is $180 cheaper. So plus 1.1% performance increase, and you're saving $180. Now, moving up to the chart, you can see that this performance benchmarks over here, as you can see, 990, 96, 98. So they're very, very similar. But look at this one. Compared to 3060 Ti and 6900 XT, there is 0.9% increase in performance, but $600 price increase. Basically, we can say that the 3060 Ti and 6900 XT perform very, very similarly, if not identically, most of the time. And the AMD card, which is the best AMD card you can get, $600 more expensive, and actually just matches the performance of Nvidia's lowest card available at this point. Now, there is a little bit of a gap between the AMD cards and then moving on to the top part of the chart over here, where you have the previous generation 2080 Ti and then the new generation cards over here. So between the Radeon RX 6900 XT and 2080 Ti, which are these cards next to each other over here, then there is 3.4% increase between the AMD's best card and Nvidia's last generation card. But there is $200 price difference of the MSRP of the 2080 Ti. But I don't want to spend too much time on the 2080 Ti because it is basically now unavailable, or all these cards you want to buy, 2080 Ti's, are only available secondhand, so it's not a very good comparison. But it just shows you that AMD's new generation GPUs can't actually keep up with the last generation of Nvidia's graphics cards in professional workflows. Now, the next step up from Nvidia's cards are 3070, and as you can see, 3060 Ti versus 3070, so I'm going here to there is 5% increase in performance and $100 increase in price. It kind of makes sense, going from 3060 Ti to 3070. If you think $100 is worth the 5% over here. Moving from 3070 to 3080, there is 4% increase and another $200 price gap. So if we put the price gap between 3080 and 3060 Ti, there is a $300 price gap, but you're getting roughly about 9% performance increase. As you can see, 4.9 plus 4, about 9% performance increase. And now between the 3090 and 3080, obviously the price difference is massive, $800. There is only 1.2% performance increase. Now this is just overall score, and this is looking at all the different things what the program can do. Obviously Premiere Pro is mostly CPU oriented, not GPU oriented. That's why the difference isn't that big between, you know, 3060 Ti and 3090. There is only about 10 or 11% difference, but how many times price difference? There's almost 4 times price difference, the only 11.5% performance increase, if you know what I mean. Now looking at another benchmark here for Premiere Pro, this is standard live playback. So that means that, you know, how well do these graphics cards play back video? And as you can see, most of them perform very much the same. 3060 Ti is on the bottom of the chart with 77. Between 2080 Ti and all the way to the top over here, there is hardly any difference. As you can see, they're very similar, and most of them perform exactly the same. Look at these over here. If the live playback is the most important for you, then the best card obviously is 6800 XT. Very close to this, within like 1-2%, is 3070, which is much cheaper. But it's interesting to see that there is AMD on top of the chart with 84 points score. Now this benchmark over here is actually representing the GPU score. So this now is doing the task where GPU is utilized and measuring how well does the GPU do when it has the freedom to do all of it. For example, looking at some of the GPU effects and video effects that are GPU accelerated, like lumetri color, Gaussian blur, sharpen, and things like that. So this really shows how well do the GPUs do and where it can actually make a difference. Let's start from the bottom again. Radeon card, let's cross that one out because this is last generation. Now the new generation 3060 Ti is 30% better than the Radeon RX 5700 XT, which is quite a bit better. And now, as you can see, these two cards, 6800 and 3060 Ti, these cards perform identically, pretty much the same, right? And look at the price difference. 6800 is $579 and 3060 Ti is $400. So basically there's $180 gap for essentially the same performance. And then the next up here is another 6800 XT and 3070, which perform basically exactly the same. 0.1 point between them two, which is less than 1% difference, which means they perform exactly the same, but they are 4.7% better performance than 3060 Ti. Now, as you can see, the 3070, interestingly enough, is very similar to the 6900 XT, which is 0.73% only better, but $500 more expensive. So as you can see, I would step from 3060 Ti to 3070 because this performs exactly the same. And then between the 3070, there is a gap between the next things. The 2080 Ti over here is, you know, doing its thing. But the next step I would go is 3080 because as you can see, there is 8% lead over 2080 Ti and it's $500 cheaper than the MSRP. Now that depends only if you can find the Nvidia 2080 Ti card. The next step from 3070 is about 10% better is 3080, as you can see over here. And between 3080 and 3090, there is 6.35% difference, and the price difference over there is $800, which is quite a lot. So my recommendation for like the step of getting GPU, depending if you are doing very heavy GPU loaded workflows like me, for example, all this footage has been shot in log format, and then there's going to be lumetri color on top, which utilizes the GPU. So if you're doing a lot of this work, a lot of color grading in Premiere Pro, it's worth getting a graphics card that is very good at the GPU aspect of accelerating your effects. So in that case, if you're very much on a budget, I would definitely start with 3060 Ti. Next up, I would actually go to 3080. Now, the price difference between 3060 Ti and 3080 is $300, right? But this 3070 doesn't kind of make sense to me because if you look, there is basically about 5% difference between 3070 and 3060 Ti, and you are paying $100 for that 5%. Now, depends if that makes sense for you, but between the 3080 and 3060, there is a much bigger difference. There is roughly about 17% difference between these two cards. Look, there is a massive gap between these two, but not that big of a gap between 3070 and 3060 Ti. Now, if you're looking for upgrade path, I would actually skip the 3070 and move straight to 3080 as you can see over here. If you are doing some very high-end things and you know you need the absolute best card, it is obviously 1390, but it's hard for me to recommend this for average or more than an average user who doesn't do a lot of 8K or things like that. Now, depending on your workflow, just think if it is worth for you to buy the 3090 because it is $1,500. That is quite a lot, and it is only worth it if you're doing a lot of GPU accelerated effects, right? If this is main thing like color grading and doing that and exporting into H.264, H.265 formats where the actual CUDA cores can be accelerated, then it is worth it. Otherwise, I don't see the point, or it is kind of hard to justify the price. I would go from 3060 Ti, the first step, and then 3080. So moving back to the standard overall scores just for a second. So you can see that this over here, it would be your first step into the video editing kind of space where you would get the graphics card 3060 Ti. The next step would be for me, the 3080. As you can see, it would be here. It's kind of hard to justify the 3070 in between over here, which I would cross out because you can see there is a bit of a gap between 3070 and 30, and that's because of the GPU accelerated scores over there, and between this and that card there is quite a bit of a difference. So this was Premiere Pro. Hopefully this was clear for you and helped you decide which card you can get. Obviously links for these are in the description. Now let's move on to DaVinci Resolve. Now in DaVinci Resolve we're going to look at extended overall scores first and start with that. This is just basically overall of every single thing, and we're going to deep into 4K media and Fusion and overall scores and 8K media, so we're going to look at that in a moment. But just looking at the overall score over here, you can see that again AMD cards are on the bottom of the charts, and 3060 Ti, which is the cheapest what Nvidia offers, is performing better than whatever AMD is performing at best. As you can see, for $1,000 whatever AMD performs, 3060 Ti performs better. So very quickly you can see that the 3060 Ti over here is the best bang for buck card that you can get, but this is not for everybody. So let's look deeper into a little bit of what's going over here, and in some cases you'd have to get a higher card. For example, if we're doing 8K editing, then this 8 GB of video RAM is not going to be enough, and then we're going to have to move into another card. As you can see, this 3060 Ti is about 10% better than the 6800 XT, which is the best what AMD cards can do, and $250 cheaper. Looking at 3080, I looked at it, there was a little bit of a mistake over here. 3080 over here is about 18% better than the 6800 XT, which is whatever AMD can do best over here. It is $200 cheaper. So there for me is no point in going with AMD graphics card when you are doing video editing, or if that is the main focus. Nvidia cards are absolutely whooping AMD cards at any price point and performing much better even at lower price points. So 3090 and 3080, there is not that big of a difference over here. As you can see, 3090 is the best card you can get for DaVinci Resolve, but for me 3080 would be probably the max at most of the cases. Unless you're doing a lot of 8K workflow, then this card fits your budget well. You know, if you can do a lot of 8K editing, this is a great card for you. So let's look a little bit more deeper now into some of the other aspects, and if any of these are more for your workflow, then you know which card you should be getting. So let's look at the Fusion score over here. If you're using a lot of Resolve's Fusion, then you can see that the top of the chart basically performs very similar. So AMD cards are on the bottom over here, and then whatever is Nvidia on the top over here, they're basically exactly the same. So between 3060 Ti and 3090, in fact 3070 is the best, you know, they're basically the same. So there's no point really looking into that. Whatever card you're gonna get from Nvidia performs, you know, in the top of the charts, and you're not going to get massive performance difference over there. Next of all, we're going to be looking at 4K media. So if you're doing 4K editing, and then this is just the benchmark, you know, measuring for all four sorts of 4K media, and how do these graphics cards do with that. Now, as you can see, again, AMD is on the bottom and Nvidia is on the top, which is now obvious. But looking at the bottom of Nvidia and between the top of AMD, 6800 XT and 3060 Ti, there's about 7.7% increase in performance, quite a lot, and $150 cheaper. Again, I don't see a point why you should go with AMD. Now, 4K media score they all perform very similar, all of these cards. So 3090 and 3060 Ti, which there's almost 4 times price difference. As you can see, the difference over here is only 5 points, which is about 2.5% in this case. As you can see, there's only 5 points difference, so not that big of a difference. So 4K media, if you're doing a lot of 4K editing on DaVinci Resolve, any of these cards are fine. If you're not stretching any more than 4K and you need the more video memory, so if you do like 6K or 8K, then if you're doing a lot of that, then probably the 3060 Ti, in fact even 2070, they're not good cards for you because all of them have 8 GB of video memory. You should be most likely looking at 3080 then, or 2080 Ti. So that's with the 4K media. Now, if there are people who do a lot of 8K media editing and doing a lot of 8K, there is some interesting stats over here. The best card for 8K media score is 3080. It's not 3090. Interestingly enough, in fact, 8K media 3060 Ti performs better than 3090. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat on this, and I wouldn't actually go with 3060 Ti at no point, because the benchmark for this actually runs without the UI of DaVinci Resolve, which makes it able for the cards that have less video memory actually give you a benchmark, but in real world that wouldn't actually work. So I wouldn't go with 3060 Ti with 8 GB or 3070. I would go with either 3090, which at this point you look kind of doesn't make sense unless you're doing like exporting or other things that can utilize the 24 GB of video memory. It is the best card is 3080. As you can see, more than 10% faster than 6800 XT, which is over here, and costs $50 more, but performs absolutely amazingly. So for me, 10% for $50 is absolutely worth it, especially if you're doing any other aspects. These cards are worth it. So I wouldn't go any of these AMD cards on the bottom, but interestingly, the 2080 Ti is actually worse than the 6800 XT. So new AMD cards are actually better than the 2080 Ti. So it's interesting to see that, you know, AMD is making some leap of there. I bet there's something to do with the 16 GB of video memory as well, because 2080 Ti only has 11 GB of video memory. So summing up, if you're doing a lot of 8K video editing, then 3080 is the card to go best bang for buck. Now, let me go back to the extended overall scores, and then let's have a look then what is the path to go and which card you should be getting. So if I was you and I'm getting started on video editing and I'm building myself a PC, then the first card I would be looking at is the 3060 Ti, which is an absolute beast of a card, as you can see, and costs only $400 if you can find it on the MSRP. Now, the next card, I would actually skip 3070, which is very similar performance what we were talking about Premiere Pro, and the next step I would go is 3080. In fact, these are the two kind of upgrade paths I would go for. There is no point in going with 3070, as you can see, not much difference over there, and 3080 is quite a bit significantly better than 3060 Ti, and has the 10 GB video memory, which is very good for 8 GB 8K editing. Now, it's very hard to justify the 3090, which is very similar performance to 3080, but $800 more price over here, which in case you're gonna get that, I would actually get 2 3080s for the price of one 3090, if that makes sense, and you would get a better performance of scaling that. So in fact, yeah, I see no point of going with 3090. I would go with 2 3080s if that is you want the best cards to get. So the upgrade path is first 3060 Ti and then 3080, and then next up would be to get another 3080, and you are running at the same price of one 3090. 2 3080s will run better than 3090. As you can see, the difference between these two isn't that big. And then that concludes the situation over here. Both of the applications, actually, the conclusion is very, very similar. The upgrade path is, first of all, get the 3060 Ti. Next up, skip the 3070 and move to 3080. Now, in DaVinci Resolve, the 3090 doesn't make any sense, but in terms of Premiere Pro, the 3090 actually is the best card to get. So if you actually need a lot of CUDA accelerated exporting or video effects that are GPU accelerated, then the 3090 will make sense in Premiere Pro. That is the absolute best card you can get for Premiere Pro. So the upgrade path would be 3060 Ti, skip the 3070, then 3080, and then 3090 if you really want the best card for you. Feel free to pick any of these up from the links below. Thank you very much guys for watching this video. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, hit that like button, it actually makes a difference. Subscribe if you haven't already, not to miss any of the future updates on this graphics card, or if you're building any PCs, things like that. Thanks for watching, see you soon, bye bye.